Very good morning, cadets. I am recording this video for you because today, that is on Tuesday of 17th August, due to the power failure in the school and due to some problems in Wi-Fi, I could not record the WebEx live class and complete it 5 minutes before. So today let us conclude the chapter. We left out few topics to discuss. We are in chapter electoral politics, and in the electoral politics today let us discuss about the popular participation and the Independent Election Commission and the acceptance of results. One of the greatest way in which we can understand that the Independent Election Commission is considered as one of the best to conduct free and fair elections in India. The Election Commission of India enjoys the power just like how the judiciary or the Supreme Court of India enjoys the power. The Chief Election Commissioner is appointed by the President of India, but once appointed as a Chief Election Commissioner of India, the Chief Election Commissioner is not answerable to the President nor to the government. The central government recommends the name of Chief Election Commissioner and Deputy Election Commissioners, but once the Chief Election Commissioner's appointment is over, then he is an independent authority. That is what the point I am stressing on here. Even if the ruling party or the government does not like what the commission does, it is virtually impossible for the government to remove the Chief Election Commissioner. So Chief Election Commission role is very important in conducting smooth and fair elections in India. It may be the Lok Sabha elections or it may be elections in the state. The Election Commission takes decision on every aspect of conduct and control of elections, from the announcement of elections to the declaration of election result. We studied in this particular chapter that Election Commission start the process with the announcement of election dates, then of course updating the voters list, then getting the nomination from the candidates, then allowing the candidates to go for election campaign, checking their activities through the code of conduct, polling the counting of vote and declaring of results. So Election Commission takes the decision on every aspect for the smooth conduct of elections in India. Second, Election Commission implements the code of conduct to punish any candidate or party that violates the code of conduct. So if any political party or a candidate violates the code of conduct, his or her candidature can be withdrawn or cancelled by the Election Commission of India. That is the authority the Election Commission enjoys in India. During the election period, the Election Commission can order the government to follow some guidelines to prevent the use and the misuse of the governmental powers, to enhance its chances to win election or transfer some government officials. So, Election Commission even take the step of transferring DC or SP of a particular, even the secretary of a particular state, because if the Election Commission feel that the person can very well influence on the election process in favor of a particular party, then the Election Commission can take the power or use the power or exercise the power of transfer of those people from that particular place to a different one. That is the power of Election Commission. When on election duty, the government officers work under the control of Election Commission, not the government. It's very important, maybe your parents who work in the state government, they will be asked to work as on the election duty. So the duration of election duty may be 2 days, 3 days or 1 week, whatever it may be. During the duration of election duty, they are considered as directly the employees of the election commission. They come under the election commission, not neither under the state government nor the central government. That means a person who is detailed for the duty, he violates the rules and regulations of the election commission. Even the election commission got a power and authority to suspend him from the service. That is the power of election commission. So in the last 25 years, the election commission has begun exercise all its power, even expand the power. It's very common now for the election commission to reprimand the government and administration for their lapses. When the election officials come to the opinion that polling was not fair in some booths, even the entire constituency, they can order for repoll. It's very common nowadays. If the election commission gets enough complaints from the people that in a particular constituency or in a particular polling booth, a lot of bribery, a lot of threatening is happening, so the election commission can increase the security and the election commission can go for repolling in that particular booth or even in an entire constituency. So the power of election commission was rightly exercised by the earlier election commissioner T.N. Seshan. T.N. Seshan, when he became the election commissioner of India, was the first person to really make others to understand what is the power of the election commission. Okay. The second major topic which we are discussing here, that is about popular participation. Whenever we speak about voters turnout, very meaning of voters turnout means the number of people who participate in the election process, that is called voters turnout. Means actual number of people who visit the polling booth and cast their vote, that is called voters turnout. Voters turnout in India is very low compared to the Europe and North America. But in India, voter turnout from last few years it is increasing when compared to the European countries. Now let us understand in India, actually voters turnout in India is very high among the poor, illiterate and underprivileged people. Poor, illiterate, underprivileged people, they are very much interested to cast their vote when compared to the educated and rich people. But it is different in the case of America. In the case of America and United States, the poor African Americans and Hispanics, they vote less than the rich and white people. So it is very clear, there is a comparison given here, you can see. In India, upper caste, OBC, scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, voting percentage in scheduled caste and scheduled tribe is high compared to the upper caste. So you can see the upper caste voting turnout in India is nearly 56% and it is 60-61 in the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. The second bar diagram clearly explains about, whereas in America it is white population, the Native Americans, their percentage is 60, whereas you can see Hispanics and the black percentage of voters turnout is less. This is a bar diagram, percentage of voters turnout in 2004. Common people in India attach a lot of importance to elections, that they feel through election they can bring pressure on political parties to adopt policies and programs favorable to them. They also feel that their vote matters in the way things are run in the country. So when we compare the rich people, so 67%, you can see the pie diagram here, 67% of Indians feel that election matters for them. They feel that election make a difference or their vote make a difference. 18% feel that election don't have any impact on their life, and 15% feel that they don't know about the process of election. But one good news that in India, every year the percentage of voter turnout is increasing. That's a good sign. Fourth one, the interest of voters in election related activities has been increasing over the years. During the 2004 elections, more than one-third voters took part in election campaign related activities. More than half of the people identified themselves as being close to one or other political party. 1 out of every 7 voters is a member of political party. So here you can see a bar diagram which is clearly explaining that the percentage of people who participate in election related activities. Election related activity means supporting a political party, or even they are involved in election campaign, or contesting for election, or taking membership of a political party. It is increasing over a period of time. That is, at present it is how much? It is 32% in 2004. Another major change in India, that is acceptance of election outcome. One final test of free and fairness of election has come out itself. If elections are not free and fair, that outcomes always favors the powerful. In such situation, the ruling parties do not lose elections. Usually, losing parties does not accept the outcome of rigged elections. But in India, we can say we have a democratic setup of election because the ruling parties routinely lose elections in India, both in national and state level. That's very common that I quote the example of West Bengal, ruled by the Communist Party of India nearly 3 decades, but now they lost their power. Congress Party ruled India for several years, but they lost the elections. So in India we can say there is enough opportunity, even the ruling party lost the elections. In the US, an incumbent or sitting elected representative rarely lose elections. In India, about half of sitting MPs and MLAs lose election. So when compared to the United States of America, Indian elections we can call as more democratic because more than half of MP or MLA, sitting MLA means what? The MLA who is in power, or MP who is in power. There is a possibility they lose election. Hope you are writing the points. Candidates who have to spend a lot of money on buying votes and those with non-criminal elections often lose the election. So this is also a recent trend you can understand. Even a poor person, we can quote name of Pratap Chandra Sarangi. Pratap Chandra Sarangi from Orissa, you can Google and see who is Pratap Chandra Sarangi. He is an MP. A person who don't have his own house, means he don't have his own bathroom. A very poor person, but succeeded in winning elections because of his social work. So we cannot conclude that only the rich win elections in India. There is enough examples where the popularity also matters a lot. Barring a few disputed elections, the electoral outcomes are usually accepted as people's verdict by the defeated parties. Okay. Now let us understand what are the challenges to the free and fair election. Okay. These are the challenges to the free and fair election. Please write down, it's very important. Candidates and the parties with a lot of money may not be sure of their victory, but they enjoy a big and unfair advantage over smaller parties and independents. This is a possibility there. A party which is having enough money definitely got an upper hand when compared to the small parties or independent candidates. That's one big disadvantage. In some parts of the country, candidates with criminal connections have been able to push others out of electoral race and secure a ticket from major parties. This is also another possibility, and that makes election process difficult in India. That a person who got a more influence, even though he got a criminal connections, there is a possibility that he got a ticket from the political parties to contest for election. That is not a good sign. Some families tend to dominate political parties. Tickets are distributed to the relatives from these families. Just recollect few political parties in India or in Karnataka. You can see these political parties continuously controlled by family members. So the family members controlling the political party and the relatives of the family members are getting opportunity for contesting election. So that is not the sign of a good democratic setup, because in a good democratic setup, even an ordinary member of a political party should also reach to the highest post of the party president. That's very, very important aspect. Very often, elections offer little choice to ordinary citizens. For both major parties and quite similar to each other, both policies and practices. So, in election, what will most of the time what happens, even though we feel that ordinary people are very important, etc., but ordinary people or a common voter enjoys on only that particular day. Other than that, he won't enjoy much importance in a political party setup. Smaller parties and independent candidates suffer a huge disadvantage as compared to the bigger parties. So these challenges exist not just in India, but also many established democracies, very common. These deeper issues are a matter of concern for those who believe in democracy. That's why the citizens, social activists and organizations have demanding that we should reform the political parties. So this is the end of this particular chapter. Please write down the important terminologies related to this chapter. Code of conduct, a set of norms and guidelines to be followed by the political parties and contesting candidates during election. Constituency, voters in a geographical area who elect a representative to legislative body. Incumbent, level playing field, rigging and turnout. The percentage of eligible voters who cast their vote in an election. So please write down the important points. With this I completed the chapter Electoral Politics. Go through the question and answers, exercise question and answers, and prepare for the examination. This chapter we will consider for monthly test in the month of August. Thank you.